Yo, how's it going everyone? I hope you're all having a wonderful day. I'm a mess, and in this video, I'm gonna be covering 3 shorter weekly Shonen Jump mangas. Now, this video comes on the precipice of one of my earlier videos that covered the cancellation of Tenmaku Cinema. That video ended up receiving several comments comparing the cancellation of Tenmaku Cinema to the cancellation of other weekly Shonen Jump mangas that were popular in the West, but simply did not garner enough attention in Japan to continue their publication. And so after that, I decided to do my own research and discovered 3 mangas that are currently no longer being published in Weekly Shonen Jump, 2 of which were actually cancelled while one of them is only on hiatus with no timetable for its return. The reason I'm including that one in this video is because I wanted to compare it to the other 2. While those 2 got cancelled after 3 volumes, this one only had 1 volume before it had to go on hiatus. Now, all 3 of these series were incredibly popular around their start time, and I wanted to take a look at the other 2's mistakes to see what caused their cancellation and see if this one can continue riding the hype train for as long as it can. And so the first manga I'll be covering is Ruri Dragon. It was written by Masaki Shindo, who has written several notable one-shots, including Twin Peaks, which in 2016 received an honorable mention in Jump's Treasure Newcomer Manga Competition. Then in 2017, one of his other one-shots, Joreshi Rentaro no Yakusoku, ended up placing first place in the 12th Kin Mirai Cup. So despite him not having published a single work yet, he has experience writing quality mangas. And then he finally published the Ruri Dragon one-shot, which garnered enough attention for Weekly Shonen Jump to take notice that they decided to serialize the manga, and it became an instant success. The story follows a girl by the name of Ruri Aoki, who's supposed to be just your ordinary high school girl, until she suddenly awoke one morning with horns growing out of her head. And then when she showed her mom informed her that it could be because of her dragon side. Ruri thought this was a joke at first, until her mom told her that no, she's not joking. Her dad is an actual living, breathing dragon. So the rest of the story goes on with Ruri trying to live her life with horns sprouting out her head, and then suddenly getting the ability to breathe fire. You can probably see why this series became instantly popular. We have a cute protagonist trying to live an ordinary life with extraordinary abilities suddenly manifesting from her. This leads to a lot of comedic situations, as well as some very serious outcomes. What makes this manga so interesting are the people's reaction to her. She suddenly went from the average girl that no one really pays attention to being potentially the most popular girl in her class. Of course, there are some people who are frightened by her because they just simply don't understand her, but everyone who got to know her suddenly became really good friends with her. Of course, this is only the first volume, so we don't know how dramatic the series could end up getting, but based off of the first 6 chapters, there were some moments that could get very serious. Now, the only reason I'm concerned about this series at all would be some of the people's reactions are a little far-fetched. At first, it was like everyone just accepted the fact that she had horns out of her head, but then we learned that her mother was putting in the work and effort to ensure she would have a normal life, even if she suddenly turned into a dragon. So despite there being a huge emphasis on people just accepting the fact that she has horns growing out of her head, there was a lot of work put into the background to ensure that people don't treat her as a monster. But we do see that there are still some people out there who are just not willing to accept it yet. So if this series comes back, that will probably be the biggest hurdle that the writer has to get over. Keeping the people's reactions realistic. Not everyone is going to be willing to accept a person with horns growing out of their head. But of course, this is meant to be a slice of life comedy, not a drama revolving around social acceptance. So more likely than not, this series isn't going to go too heavily in the dramatic side, which may or may not be a positive. But according to my research, people really enjoyed this series while it was coming out, especially because of how cute Ruri is. That seems to be this series' main selling point, the cute protagonist, as well as the amazing artwork behind this. It's nothing too extraordinary or too out there. It's pretty simplistic, but it's done so well that you really can't find any faults with it, which is more than what I could say for this next manga. The next series up on my list is Candy Flurry. It was written by Ippon Takeguchi, whom hasn't had a lot of work done. I do believe Candy Flurry was his first ever manga published, but recently he has published a one-shot, so he's still an amateur, and it unfortunately does come through in his writing. And then the artwork is done by Santa Mitarashi, who has worked with Ippon on another series, but he's also done his own one-shot before. But again, just like Ippon, his lack of experience really comes through in the artwork. I really do hate to say it because this is such a unique series. It's just that both the writer and artist don't have enough experience to have pushed this series to greater heights. The series follows a girl by the name of Tsumugi Minase, whom loves sweets, but due to the world they live in, sweets are sort of a taboo. Due to the antics of a famous candy company called Toy Toy Candy, people started developing supernatural powers revolving around sweets. And with people suddenly getting supernatural abilities, there was a sudden increase in crime. And the most heinous act that one of these new sweet users ended up doing was that they caused the destruction of Tokyo with giant lollipops. Which is extremely unfortunate because the protagonist can also wield lollipops. She is a lollipop sweet user. However, she wasn't the one who destroyed Tokyo. She did witness the person, but because of their actions, she has to hide the fact that she has a sweet ability too. Of course, it doesn't help that there are entire criminal organizations revolving around these sweet users, but either way, she's just trying to live a normal life. Which unfortunately gets spoiled because she gets discovered by a Risete agent. The Risete, or Sweet Police, are soldiers who are specifically trained to fight against sweets users. Good news is she managed to convince the Risete agent that she wasn't the person who destroyed Tokyo. And so the rest of the series just follows them as they try to find a way to clear her name and discover the true lollipop user who destroyed Tokyo. Now, this series is a really cool battle manga. However, the artwork is very inconsistent. The fight scenes look extravagant and the sweets are really well drawn, but the characters, not so much. There are some times where the artwork is just very awkward. The characters' body portions don't really match what they were a couple of pages ago. Like their limbs might suddenly look a lot skinnier, or their bodies might just look paper thin. These minor flaws are ignorable, but what's not ignorable are the characters' traits. Like we have a couple of moments where our character is looking incredibly serious, but saying something really goofy. Like you expected them to come out and say something super badass or awesome or clever, and it's just like, no, it's something really simple and stupid. And then there are other moments which seem completely serious, but then the author tries to insert a joke in there to try to make it seem even funnier because the atmosphere was very serious. But the joke just ends up falling flat. Like there's this one character who is a huge klutz, and apparently when she was a kid, she put on mismatching socks and came home to change them, and it looked like her mother was very disappointed. She even sighed. She pretty much sighed and told her, you came home to change your sock because you put on the wrong ones. And then she's suddenly all excited, like, oh my god, you're so cute, and then giving her a hug, rubbing her face against hers, and it's just like, that's super awkward. It almost seemed like she was disappointed in her daughter, like implying she's a super strict, super serious mother, but no, she's a very loving and doting parent. And it's the same thing with her father. These are just the most notable awkward scenes, but there's a lot more than just these. And that made it very hard to get invested into the series. Like, it was to the point where I thought about just skipping this one and just moving on to the next one, but the premise was just so interesting. I had to see what happened next. But I'm guessing a lot of people did not feel the same way. A lot of these really awkward scenes most likely turned people off, and that was the result behind them not having enough sales. And as a result, the series got cancelled. Compared to Ruri Dragon, they both had really interesting premises. They were both very unique, but Ruri Dragon simply has better characters. There were a lot less awkward moments in that series, so you felt much more comfortable reading it. Whereas with Candy Flurry, there were some points where it's just like you had to put the series down for a sec and step away just because the cringe levels were so high, you needed a break from it. And now lastly, and potentially the most popular manga to ever be cancelled, and the one most people recommended for me to read, The Hunters Guild Redhood, which is written by Yuki Kawaguchi, whom has written several one-shots, but who is most known for working as an assistant for Kohei Horikoshi, who is the creator of My Hero Academia, as well as Yuichi Matsui, the author of Elusive Samurai. Now, Yuki first worked for Kohei on My Hero Academia until Red Hood was published, but then after its cancellation, he went to go work for Yusei. So now the way the Hunters Guild Red Hood got published was that its one-shot placed first place in the 14 Golden Future Cup competition, which guaranteed a serialization. So now this series started its publication with high expectations, and at the start it looked like it was going to meet these expectations. The series follows a small boy named Velo, whom after his village gets ransacked by wolves, gets invited by a woman named Grimm to join the Hunters Guild and help them exterminate werewolves from existence, which is a very simple yet very entertaining premise. There's also a lot of references to classic fantasies, the obvious being Red Riding Hood, but there are also references to Cinderella and even Pinocchio. And I'm certain if this series was given more of a chance, there would have been a lot of entertaining references chances. But according to the reception, a lot of people thought it had a very slow start. It apparently didn't hook readers right away, and when it finally got to a good part, people felt like it suddenly became super rushed and too many characters started being introduced. However, despite all that, I thought the artwork was fantastic, the story was really well put together, and the characters were all really well written. The story gripped you and didn't let you go. Not a single part of this series was boring or lackluster. There were a couple of things I found to be very flawed. Like, there was a point where a werewolf started explaining the entire anatomy of a werewolf and how his body worked, and his reasoning for telling the protagonist all of this is because he knew he could not beat him. Lines like that are so incredibly pointless, stupid, and deter the reader from continuing to read the series. There could have been so many other ways where this information got to the protagonist without having the antagonist explain it to them. This is potentially one of the worst tropes in all of literature, where the villain not only explains their plan to the protagonist, but even explains how to prevent it. And the only reason they do this is because they feel confident enough to stop the protagonist even if they knew. That may have been one of the reasons why people stopped reading this series. Another really stupid trope that this manga used happened when the protagonist Velo was going up against these werewolf brothers, and then the elder one turned on the younger one. He was about to kill his younger brother in a fit of rage, and Velo tried to stop him. Fortunately, Grim grabbed him before he could do anything, and when Velo asked her why she stopped him from saving the younger brother, she told him why would he? They're trying to kill the werewolves. If they start killing each other, that is beneficial to them. It increases their chances of survival, which I'm really happy that she stopped him, because again, I really hate this stupid anime trope of the protagonist trying to save everyone, including his enemies. You're fighting against man-eating beasts who take pleasure in tormenting and killing innocent people. If they suddenly tried to kill each other, why would you stop them? To me, it just doesn't make any sense. Other than that, I felt this series was flawless. This series definitely could have become one of the best series in Shonen Jump if it simply had the chance to grow and develop itself. Unfortunately, in the highly competitive Shonen Jump environment, a series makes one or two mistakes that causes it to lose some readers will result with the series getting cancelled. No exception, no second chances. Which is very unfortunate for a series that has so much potential. Compared to Ruri Dragon, with its massive popularity in only one volume, I personally feel that Redhood was superior to Ruri Dragon, even within the first 7 chapters. That first volume was good enough to surpass Ruri Dragon. Unfortunately, the people in Japan didn't agree with me, so it's a shame that this series got cancelled. Hopefully the writer learns from their mistakes and improve upon their next work. And with that, I'd like to thank you all so much for watching. I truly appreciate it. If you guys are curious about some of the other canceled mangas I did my research on, let me know in the comment section down below. If there's enough interest in them, I'll make a video about them. Anyways, thanks again for watching. I truly appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you in the next one, and remember to keep having fun. See ya!